Morning, grade 10 G. I hope you guys are doing well. In this lesson here, we're going to continue on with the skeletal system, and we'll take a closer look at each part or each bone of the skeleton. We'll also talk about the three different types of tissues that you find inside the skeletal system, and we'll also talk about the joints that make up the skeletal system. Okay, so before we move on to that, let's briefly go over, the five functions of the skeletal system. We would have did this inside class, so we'll just briefly, review over that. Okay, so uh, this one of the, I guess, more noticeable or obvious features of the skeletal system is that it's going to help to support our body. Okay, so basically, our bodies are not a skeleton or, bones inside of our body, then our body would be shapeless. Okay, so our skeleton helps to support the weight of our body and it's actually going to give our body a shape. Okay, in addition to that, the skeletal system also helps with movement. Okay, so usually when you think about movement, you might think about muscles, but the muscles they also need to work together with the skeleton in order to help our bodies to move. Okay, so movement basically occurs from muscles uh, helping joints to either bend or straighten. Okay, so that's essentially movement. All right, another thing the skeletal system helps us with is that it protects our body. This is another one that we, talked about inside class. So, for example, this picture here is showing the rib cage, and of course, it's going to protect, vital organs such as the lung and the heart. Okay, so the reason why these organs need protection, like I said, they are vital organs. That means they are very important. Something was to happen to our lungs or our heart, then we would probably, lose our life. So this is why you find bones around the most important parts or the most important organs in our body, such as our brain, or as in this example here, the the lungs and the heart. Okay. Another thing the skeletal system does is that it is going to help to create red and white blood cells. Okay, so this is going to occur inside the bone marrow of bones. Okay, so you find bone marrow basically at the center of the bones. It's basically a very soft, spongy material, and this is where our red blood cells and white blood cells are going to be created. All right, moving on. Another function of our skeletal system is that it is going to store minerals inside of it. Okay, the two minerals that we're talking about is called calcium and phosphorus. Sorry, wrong slide. Okay, so yeah, that's another function of the skeletal system. It helps with storing minerals such as calcium and phosphorus. Okay, so some of the I guess characteristics of bones is that it's a very strong and lightweight material. Okay, so it's very hard to break a bone. It requires a lot of force to break a bone. And the reason why, bones are so strong is because they have to support the weight of our body. So they can't be fragile. In addition to them being strong, they're also very light. Okay, so bones aren't necessarily very heavy. Okay, so they only take about I guess 20% of our body weight. And the reason why it's important for bones to be light is because it it's also going to make our body a little bit more easier to move around. Because if bones were, extremely heavy, then it would probably be, a lot harder to move our limbs. So the bone is very strong and it's also very lightweight at the same time. Okay, so next we are going to talk about the uh, individual bones that make up our body. Okay, we would have briefly, glossed over this in class last week, Friday. So right now we'll take a closer look. Okay, so with the collarbone, this is the bone that's basically found at the top of our chest. Okay, the scientific name for a collarbone is called the clavicle. Okay, so with the clavicle, like I said, this bone is found above the chest and it basically is attached to our shoulder. So it's going to support our shoulder joint. Okay, next we have the scapula. Okay, so this is the bone that you basically found at the back of the shoulder. So this is also going to help with, moving around our shoulder. Okay, so this is what this bone here is called. You're gonna have two on either sides, and like I said, it's found at the back of the body. So this is the back part of the shoulder. Okay, next you have the vertebra column. Okay, it's also called the spine or the spinal cord. Okay, so the vertebral column, this is basically what you would call the backbone. This is the bone that runs down the center of your back. Okay, and we refer to an individual part of this bone as a vertebra. Okay, so this is why we call it a vertebra column. Because if something is referred to as a column, then that means it goes basically from up to down. So they're stacked on top of one another. All right, next you have the coccyx and the sacrum. Okay, so this is basically the tail bone. Okay, the coccyx, that's going to be the very tip of the tailbone, and the sacrum is basically going to be the large bone that basically flares out towards the bottom of the spinal cord. All right, next you have the humerus. This is the bone that you find in the upper arm. Okay, so this picture actually shows a number of different bones together. You see the clavicle here, also called the collarbone. You can see the scapula, which is the back part of the shoulder, or the bone that's found at the back part of the shoulder. Okay, this long bone here is called the humerus, and you have two bones you find in the lower arm. You have the radius and the ulna. Now, it's very important to remember which is which. The radius is going to be the one that's on the same side as the thumb, and the ulna is going to be, I guess, on the underside. Okay, so one thing that can help you guys to remember this, you could say that the U in ulna, I guess, stands for under. Okay, so maybe that'll help you to remember that the ulnar is under the radius. Okay, and also try to remember that the radius is on the side with the thumb. Okay, so the ulna, that's the bone that's going to be, under that. Okay, you also have the metacarpals and the phalanges. Okay, so the phalanges are going to be the bones that are inside your fingers, and the metacarpals are going to be the bones that's inside your hand. Okay, but I have a better picture that's going to show you that, in another slide. Okay, so like I said earlier, the radius is going to be on the top, the ulna is going to be on the bottom. Okay, so the radius, that's the bone that's going to be on the same side as your thumb. And the ulnar, that's going to be under that. Okay, so here's a better picture of the bones inside of the hand. Okay, so Right here you have the carpals. Okay, so these are the bones that you're going to find, immediately right next to your wrist, as you go up your hand. So this area here is called the carpals. Now, the bones that actually make up your hand, not including your fingers, that is the metacarpals. So this is what you find basically inside your hand. Okay, so this is going to support the shape of your hand and help to spread it out a little bit so that our hands can be wide. Okay, so that's what the metacarpals are. This is where they are found. And then from that, you have the phalanges. And like we said, the phalanges are the bones that you find inside your fingers. Okay, so the carpals, the common name for that is wrist bones. The metacarpals, like I said, is the top part of your hand. So that's before you get to your fingers. Okay, and like we said, the phalanges, that refers to your actual fingers. Okay, so I think we covered the rib cage already. But anyhow, I mean, this is the one that's easy for everyone to remember. You have 12 pairs of ribs, which means you have 24 ribs total. Okay, so you have 12 on either side. Okay, at the center of the rib cage, you have a bone that's called the sternum. Okay, so this is basically a very thick bone at the center of your chest. And this is also going to help to protect those vital organs. All right. Another thing about the sternum is that this is what, each rib is going to be connected to. Okay. So you basically have some cartilage, that's going to attach each individual bone to the sacrum at the center of the chest. Now, this cartilage is not as soft as, I guess, the other cartilage that you find in the body because obviously uh, it has to, protect those organs, but it still allows a little bit of flexibility so that when you breathe, for example, your rib cage can expand. Okay. All right. Next, we have the pelvic bone. Okay. The pelvic bone is the bone that you're going to find at your waist. Okay. So uh, inside this picture, you could also see the sacrum and the coccyx that we talked about earlier in the previous picture. All right, next you have the femur. This is also called the largest bone inside the body. This is the bone that you find inside your thigh. Next you have the tibia and the fibula. The tibia, this is the shin bone. Okay, so this is basically the bone that's found directly below your knee. And to the back, you have the fibula. You also have the patella, which you find at the knee. Okay, so your kneecaps, that's called the patella. All right, now the only thing left we have. Okay, now the only thing left is the bones in the foot. Okay, uh, the bones at your ankle, they are called the tarsals. Okay, so that's this region right here. We call these the tarsals. Next, we have the bones that actually make up the foot, and we call this the metatarsals. Okay, so it's a little bit similar to, how we name the bones inside the hand, but the bones inside the hand, we call that the bones inside our wrist, we call that the carpals, and we call the bones in our hand the metacarpals. So it's a similar situation. We're still using that same meta word, okay? We call the bones inside of our ankle the tarsals, and the bones that are inside our foot the metatarsals, okay? And once again, once you get to the actual toes, who have the same name. We call them the phalanges. Okay, so basically we have 10 phalanges in our hands, and we also have 10 phalanges in our feet. So that means we have a total of 20 phalanges on our body. So phalanges refer to our fingers as well as our toes.